Afternoon. We're going to get started. I'm so happy for you to join us today for our September virtual general membership luncheon and or meeting. Everybody, if you want to eat lunch, you can. But but as everybody continues to log in, please take a minute to write in the chat feature your contact information. Also, say hello to each other, and I'll give you a couple of minutes to get that information typed in, and then we'll get started.
Hello, can anybody hear me?
We can hear you, Dennis. How are you?
I'm doing fine. How are y'all?
Good. Good to see you.
Good seeing you.
Hi, everybody. Hi, Dana.
Hello.
Nice to see you.
Good to see you.
Okay, as everybody is putting in their contact information in the chat feature and saying hello to everybody, we're going to give you another minute to do that. Everybody's saying hello. How fun.
Stephanie, I have a question. Is Hope Village, what is Hope Village?
Sure. Let's see. I was unmuting myself. You said
there you are.
Hope Village?
Yeah.
Oh, well, we are a nonprofit organization in Friendswood, and we serve adults with intellectual and developmental disabilities. It's a wonderful place. We have about 60 residents who live here full-time in 5 houses. We're currently locked down because of pandemic circumstances, but we're staying healthy, and it's a wonderful place. So thank you for asking.
All right, so Stephanie's a saint. We've established that. So
she is. They are a wonderful organization. Well, good afternoon again, everyone. I am Cindy DeWeese, the President and CEO of the Clear Lake Area Chamber of Commerce. And as you have questions throughout the presentation, please feel free to use the chat feature, or you can email Sherry Sweeney, the Chamber Vice President, at Sherry, S-H-A-R-I, at clearlakearea.com. The staff will be monitoring the questions at the end of the presentation. Before I introduce Sean Bailey, I want to invite you all to attend our Leadership Awards Luncheon on November the 10th. This will be in person at South Shore Harbor Resort to honor Sean Bailey, our 2019-2020 Chairman of the Board, and welcome the 2020-2021 Chair. That is so hard to say, all those 20s. Chairman of the Board, Bob Davey, and celebrate you as members. I want you to know that today is Sean's last day as Chairman of the Board, but as I've told him many times, you can check out, but you can never leave. And as the old song says, but we're happy to have a great year. What a tough year to be Chairman of the Board, but he has done it with grace and dignity and all those good things. And so the right person is at the right place at the right time, and that certainly is how we feel about Sean this year. So with no further ado, I want to introduce our Chairman of the Board, Sean Bailey with Amico Federal Credit Union. Sean.
Well, thanks, Cindy. Those are very kind words. But yeah, one of the greatest titles you can receive is past chairman. So I am looking forward to that reign as past chairman. And it has definitely been an interesting year. But hey, we've all adapted, we all changed. We have this fantastic opportunity we have in front of us today. And I have the pleasure today of introducing Dana Steele and her program, Rockstar Principles of Success. Have a few more things to talk about here. Dana Steele is the CEO of JFA Inc., managing diverse interests, including real estate, Broadway investments, corporate aviation safety consulting, electric urban air and ground mobility projects, and emerging greenhouse gas technologies. That is diverse, for lack of a better term, for sure. She is a longtime successful entrepreneur, professional business speaker, and author of 12 books. Dana started the first NASA and space-themed e-commerce operation, was a top Texas rock radio personality, inducted into the Texas Radio Hall of Fame in 2010, and watch out, he ran for U.S. Congress in 2018. She and her husband, former NASA research pilot, Dr. Charles Justice, reside in Houston together, Together, they raise entirely too many rescue dogs. And a couple of things, Dana, I also was reading somewhere else. You started it back at the greatest university in Texas, at Texas A&M University.
Whoop.
Yep. All right. Humble beginnings there. So that is awesome. Glad to hear. And then I'm all ready to get back to rocking out and concert time. So I'm supporting here. So with that, don't make fun of me, Dana. I'm going to do my best DJ voice to introduce you. Okay.
Go
You ready?
for it.
All right, let's put your hands together and let's welcome Dana Steele to the stage. Dana.
Woo! Thank you guys so much. So many familiar faces as I saw everybody logging on. I miss Clear Lake. I don't miss. In fact, I took the hurricane app off my phone. I don't miss that. So I know you guys have been going through a lot of that in the last few weeks. But thank you so much for having me. For those of you who don't know me, I did live in the Clear Lake area for, gosh, how long? Almost the last 28 years. And this time last year, decided to downsize and move downtown. We were empty nesters, so we're living in downtown Houston now. But I am a native Houstonian. I am a 5th generation Texan. I'm a 3rd generation Houstonian. This picture, by the way, is my first, well, it was called the Houston Fat Stock Show back then. And my dad took me to see the only non-musical act that is ever performed at the Houston Livestock Show and Rodeo. And that was the cast of Bonanza. I had a big old crush on Little Joe. I went on to be a radio DJ here in Houston for 22 years. If we have anybody under 30 that has tuned in, that's a record. So I spent 22 years on the radio in Houston. Very fortunate that I was able to stay here for my entire career. And I was exposed to so many rock stars. And what I learned from being around all these rock stars, the majority of my career at KLOL in the 80s. So, you know, it was Van Halen and John Bon Jovi and Ozzy Osbourne. And I mean, you name them, we were around them. We hung out with them. We played their music. They came to the station. We went to their concerts. But I started to really pay attention to what made the difference between a rock star and a one-hit wonder. You've heard the phrase one-hit wonder. You know, they've got that one great hit, like Robbie Dupree always comes to mind. He had one hit and then you never heard from him ever again. Some of these people are so incredibly talented. I would meet rock stars who maybe weren't that incredibly talented, but they were at the top of the charts. And then I would meet these one-hit wonders who had just this amazing talent, and then you never heard from them again. So I started to watch, and it all came down to what I call the rock star principles of success. And one of the things that I really noticed was it all comes down to their work ethic is what it was. But what I'm going to do right here is, and I'll have to get you guys to help me with this. I need everybody that has on pants, or at least a shirt on, to put your camera back on. We're going to do the rock star oath. So I need you can unmute right now. Everybody unmute and put your camera back on and raise your right hand. All right, you ready? And repeat after me. I can't take credit for this. I stole this from Gene Simmons. Repeat after me. Life is too short.
Life is too short
To have anything but.
To have anything but.
Delusional notions about yourself.
Delusional
notions
About yourself.
You gotta believe. You gotta believe in your product. You've got to believe in you. How do you expect anybody to believe in you or your product or your service if you don't believe first? I like to say, have you ever watched Mick Jagger walk on stage? It's not like he's like, oh yeah. No, man, he struts because he knows he's a rock star. So first thing, the rock star oath, we get that out of the way. But we're all in such a weird time right now. I mean, I'm used to being live in front of you at lunch or in the chamber. I'm used to being on stage. I never thought I would say, I miss the United Club at the airport. I miss all of this, but we're all going through change. Change is so frightening, but we have to, and we have to constantly change. So we may have another month, another 2 months, another 6 months of this crazy going on until we get a vaccine and we get to the other side of all of this. So I want to give you 5 things you can take moving forward from today so that we can get through all of this and come out on the other side of it successful and happy with what we're doing in our business. The first is change. The Rolling Stones, back in, I'm trying to remember when it was. I was at Y94. It was a Houston powerhouse rock and roll station, Y94, and overnight, in the middle of the night, they changed the format to disco. So I had to have, I mean, it was just, I hate disco. I like a lot of things and I'm pretty easygoing, but coconut and disco, I just can't do either one of those things. But the next thing I know, either half the DJs have been fired or walked out. And I went from being a secretary during the week, scheduling commercials on the air and helping out on the weekends, to a full-time DJ. And I watched a lot of these rock bands. It was a dark, horrible time, kind of like a pandemic. It was a dark, horrible time for rock and roll. But the top bands figured out a way to stay alive and to stay relevant. And the Rolling Stones were one of the first bands to start taking their songs and doing dance mixes. David Bowie, if David Bowie was alive today, he would tell you the #1 song David Bowie hated to play in concert is probably one of your favorites and probably something you want to hear. Let's Dance. David Bowie hated that song, but David Bowie did it. The Rolling Stones did it. They found a way to evolve with what was happening in music. Fortunately, a couple of years after that, we came out of the dark ages of disco and got into 80s rock, which was a lot better. But look at what they did it. They hated it. The Rolling Stones hated disco. David Bowie hated disco. And we're having to do so many changes right now. Restaurants are having to be outside. Bars can only have so many people. But find a way to change. That's how you stay alive. You have to. How many times have I changed careers over my life, including running for Congress? I learned 2 things out of that. Always wear your name tag on the right side of your chest. And never run for political office. I don't know if Dennis Ball is still there, but those were the 2 lessons I took away from it. The second thing I want you to take moving forward is move forward. One of the phrases I hate to hear anybody say is, "Oh, I wish it was like it used to be. I wish it could be like it used to be." Well, you know what? It's not. We have to look forward. We have to move forward. Hopefully, some of you that are joining us today were able to enjoy the concert that Melissa Etheridge did for me at Scout Bar over off NASA Road. Boy, that was a hoot. That made running for Congress worth all of it right there, having David Crosby and Melissa Etheridge come in. But when this pandemic started, all of my rock friends had to cancel concerts. I was going to hang out this past summer with Joan Jett and Motley Crue and Def Leppard. No, everything was canceled. And as Melissa Etheridge's concerts began to cancel, her lifeblood is playing. Her lifeblood is playing live. But she's one of the few artists. In fact, she was the first artist to not sit around on her couch at home going, "Boy, I wish I was on the road. Boy, I wish it was the way it was, used to be." Instead, she set up her camera on FaceTime on her phone. She had horrible bandwidth in her house, but she started playing a live concert. As soon as they locked down California, she started playing a live concert at 3:00 our time every afternoon, 7 days a week on Facebook. And it got a little better. They got better bandwidth. They got better cameras. She started using her iPad. Then they got real cameras. She did this, I want to say, for a total of 57 days. Moving forward, keep playing, keep performing, keep in touch. She even had a tour T-shirt made, and she made a fortune off of that. I bought a couple of them. And then on day 58, we got a message on Facebook that said, "We're so sorry, but Melissa is not going to be able to perform this afternoon. Her son died this morning." So for 4 weeks, we didn't hear anything from Melissa other than the statement that her son had died of opioid addiction. But when she came back, she had moved forward even more. They turned her garage into a concert hall. They're up to 7 cameras now. Her wife created the hit TV show, Nurse Jackie. So she's now producing this incredible concert that Melissa is doing a couple of times a week online. And they've moved it to a subscription service. And Melissa is making on average $50,000 a month performing live from her garage. She didn't sit around and say, well, I wish it was the way it used to be. She found a way to not only do it differently, but a way to get through her pain. And she's making a living and teaching other artists how to do this now. The third thing you're going to remember during this pandemic is don't be afraid to fail. Bad things happen, horrible things happen. I got let go from KLOL when I was pregnant. I thought that was the end of everything. It's the best thing that ever happened to me. It was like the baby bird being kicked out of the nest. I learned there were a lot of other things I could do. And Def Leppard is a great example. On New Year's Eve in 1984, Def Leppard was huge, absolutely huge. They were selling millions of albums. Def Leppard's drummer was driving too fast on a windy road, missed a turn, went off a cliff, had a horrific accident, severed his left arm. There happened to be a nurse that was driving at the same time and saw the accident happen. She had a cooler in her car, packed the arm on ice, and they tried to reattach it when they got him to the hospital. It didn't happen. He lost the arm. Everybody said it's the end of Def Leppard, or it's at least the end of Rick Allen's career. Look at this picture. Look at this slide. He's right there by the fail word. They are still one of the biggest bands, biggest touring bands, biggest recording bands, biggest selling bands in the world with a one-armed drummer. He didn't let it end his career. Yeah, it's a pretty, as they say, shitty thing to happen. But instead of saying, well, it's all over, I can't do anything, I've failed, it's all over, he started inviting drummers from all over the world to help him come up with a way that he could play drums and still play these hard rock songs with 2 good feet and 1 arm. And he did. And he continues to drum with them now. The fourth thing I want you to do is we try to find our ways to what is a new way of doing business? How are we going to survive this? How are we going to get through this? Work with your team. Your team can be your significant other. Your team can be your kids. Your team can be your staff. Your team is the people that work above you, beside you, and below you. Listen to their ideas. Ask them, what do we do? How do we change? How do we move forward? What should we do completely different? When the lead singer of AC/DC died, Bon Scott, again, the band was distraught. It's like the Def Leppard story. What are we going to do? It's all over. And one of their roadies, Brian Johnson, a roadie, nobody pays any attention to the roadies. One of the roadies came to the band and said, you know, I can sing just like him. And they said, well, you know what? We'll give you a chance. We'll let you audition as well. That is probably the version of AC/DC that you know. And where did Sean go? Isn't that the shirt you have on? Didn't you have on your AC/DC shirt? I love that. But Brian Johnson has been the lead singer for years and years and years. 2 things. The band listened to their team and were able to continue. And Brian asked, if maybe there's a company you work for, maybe you're not the head of the company, but you see some ways to move forward and succeed, don't be afraid to speak up. Let people know when you have ideas. It goes back to the don't be afraid to fail. Successful people fail all the time. It's because they constantly are innovating and trying new things and listening to new ideas. One of the worst things a leader can say is, oh, that'll never work. How do you know? How do you know until you try it? And if it doesn't work, it's not failure. Look at Steve Jobs. You do not own every product that Apple ever released. Sometimes it seems like it, but you don't. A lot of things fail. One of my favorite quotes is from Thomas Edison, and it is, I've never failed at anything. I've just found 10,000 ways not to make a light bulb. So listen to your team. You have no idea what sort of hidden talent you have on your team. So as we all try to find a way out of this, my team is Wonder Husband, Charlie Justice, and my son, Dak Justice. Dak is the assistant stage manager for the North American tour of Fiddler on the Roof. He thought he was coming home for maybe 4 or 6 weeks and was going back out on the road. He will probably be here for a year. So he's having to change and become part of my team. He helped me set up all of this. He helped me set up all of this lighting. We all have to listen to our team and see what their ideas are. And the fifth thing I want you to do is persist. Just persistence pays off. Just don't quit. Keep going. Keep moving. Keep trying new things. Keep talking to your team. Keep changing the way you do things. Joan Jett was turned down by every major record label in the United States, in Europe, all over the world. Every label turned, nobody wants to hear a female rocker. So instead of giving up, she kept trying, she kept trying. Finally, she and her writing partner and business partner, Kenny Laguna, who plays keyboards and was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame with her, they started their own record company. People said, you can't do that. Now you can do it. You can release your own things on Spotify and Pandora. But back then, it was not done. Back then, the record companies could blackball you. They would make sure radio stations didn't play you. They would make sure you did not get into any clubs or concert halls. But she persisted. She knew she had a hit. And so they released it themselves. It was a little song called I Love Rock and Roll. And of course, the rest is rock and roll history for her. You've got to persist. If you believe in what you're doing, you can make this work. I wrap this all up by reminding you that there are these 5 things. Change is good. These are the 5 things I want you to remember. Change is good. Think forward. Quit asking for it to be the way it used to be. None of us have a time machine. So look forward. Don't look backwards. Don't be afraid to fail. Take a lesson from that failure and move forward. Know your team. Talk to your team. Listen to your team. Make your team a part of your success plan. And last but not least, never give up. And you have to do these 5 things every day, 7 days a week, 24/7 in everything you do, whether it's with your business, whether it's with your family. You have to just keep going. And that's where this quote from Lady Gaga comes from. I just am committed wholeheartedly to theater with no intermission. A lot of people have asked me what I've been doing during the pandemic. I was getting ready to debut a play called The Woman in the Mirror. It's based on the book I wrote, Surviving Alzheimer's, with friends, Facebook, and a really big glass of wine. And it's my journey with my mom's Alzheimer's told through dark humor. As soon as the pandemic started, of course, there was no way we're going to be able to do this in the theater. So instead, we got together to do a table read on Zoom. I recorded them, and we ended up turning it into a 9-episode series on YouTube called The Woman in the Mirror. I've had people try to get me to do a podcast for 5, 6, 7 years. Like, that's the last thing I want to do. I was at radio for 22 years. You know what? I started a podcast. I have my little booth here. I have my microphone. I don't know if any of these things are going to last. I don't know if any of these things are going to make me money, but I'm constantly trying new things so that when we do come out of this later this year, hopefully early next year, maybe I'll have a whole new career. Same with you. So I really thank you guys for having me. I miss you. I miss Clear Lake. I miss Masa Sushi terribly. But I hope that I've given you some things to think about. You can do this. We just have to start thinking of different ways to do things. I want to tell you one more story, or just point out one more example. You know, we're getting ready to go into Halloween, and I saw where somebody has taken, instead, you know, we can't do haunted houses. We cannot be gathering like that. So somebody's taken like an old warehouse district where you can drive through it. It's kind of closed down, and they've turned it into a drive-through haunted house. So, you know, people just drive very slowly, and then you've got zombies and whatever coming out at you. And I just thought, that's brilliant. We all have to rethink the way we do things, but we can do it. Remember, change is good. Change is scary, but change is very good. And you're all rock stars.
We know that you're the rock star, Dana. So, did we have any questions?
We're all rock stars, and that's just it. You have to think. What did we do at the beginning? Life is too short to have anything but delusional notions about yourself. So you have to believe that you're going to get through this, and you're going to get through it bigger and better than ever before.
Well, we certainly appreciate your positive message, and don't we just hear these things just when we need to? You know, you just think, oh, is this ever going to be over? Are we ever going to go back to actually? We're in the people business here, and I love seeing all of your faces, but I would rather see you, actually see you in person. So
I miss hugging people.
I know, humans and hugs is what we miss here. So,
and I think I forgot how to put on makeup. But I did it for you. I even took a shower for you.
You look lovely, but I want to know why your hair is so short.
I shaved my head. I've always wanted to shave my head. I love the movie G.I. Jane with Demi Moore. She just looks so badass with her head shaved. And, you know, it's something I've always wanted to do, but I'm a speaker. I'm in the public eye. You have no idea what shape your head is.
Right.
And my friends that have fought like warriors, have fought breast cancer and other forms of cancer. Melissa Etheridge is another one. I thought she looked so fierce when she was fighting breast cancer. So you know what, at the beginning of the pandemic, about that time, around, you know, the middle of April, when we were all starting to look a little shaggy and try to figure out what we were going to do, I jokingly posted on Facebook, if I shave my head, will you donate money to, well, I picked the Houston Food Bank. I figured that was the least polarizing of charities. You know,
a good one.
God forbid if I'd picked anything else, you know, one side or the other was going to be mad. But I thought, you can't get mad at the Houston Food Bank.
Right.
So I put a link to the Houston Food Bank, and the next morning I woke up, and I was kind of joking, okay? But the next morning I woke up and people had donated over $2,000 to the Houston Food Bank. So
I think that's a success story. I guess you better shave your head, right?
Well, I think we're at about 14.
Oh,
look, there we go. My husband did it. I think we ended up raising about $14,000 for the Houston Food Bank. And remember, every dollar you donate to a food bank translates to 3 meals.
Yeah.
So thank you to everyone who gave. You know, we're very fortunate. We're very well off. Wonder Husband is still working. So we're just trying, we're saving so much money from eating out and getting our hair done and Botox and facials and God knows what else.
You just need a
that we're
filter on
just
your
trying to
screen,
turn
right?
around. I know. Believe me, I have a lot of ring lighting going right now. But we just decided we're going to use this time to not only reinvent ourselves and try new things, but to take that money we would normally use to go out to dinner or to go to New York and see theater, and donate it. So we do the Houston Food Bank. There's a great place in Houston called Tony's Place, which is for LGBTQ homeless teens who, a lot of teenagers get thrown out of the house when their parents find out they're gay. So there's just a lot of different charities we're trying to help right now. And I know a lot of you guys are involved in charities as well, along with your job. So feel free to post this stuff on my Facebook page. We're just trying to share as many charities, not only organizations that need help, but people that need help. So ask me anything.
Very good.
You know me, I have no filter.
She really doesn't, y'all, if you don't know her. I do want to tell you or say something or ask you a question. So how does Gene Simmons feel about Sammy Hagar writing the foreword in your book now? Because wasn't he the original foreword, Gene Simmons?
I don't think Gene Simmons cares as long as, Sammy had actually written that forward originally. I was working on a book on networking, and Sammy had originally written that, and then everything happened with Mom and then Congress, and I reinvent myself every couple of years. So when I decided to redo it, first I asked Gene if it was okay, and he was perfectly fine with it. And then I asked Sammy if I could use that, if we could rework it and use it for the new book, because it kind of is with the theme of Rock to the Top, that these top rock stars get there because of their work ethic. Gene Simmons, one of the smartest people I've ever met in my life.
Yeah.
Sammy Hagar, one of the most prolific entrepreneurs I've ever met. Here's a great story about Sammy Hagar. Do I have time to tell a Sammy Hagar story?
Yes.
When Sammy Hagar first started out and found out how much money they were paying in commissions to a travel agent, he bought a travel agency. And he's owned the travel agency ever since. He still owns it. One of the big bones of contention that caused one of the biggest fights between him and Eddie Van Halen was when Sammy joined Van Halen, his manager, Ed Loeffler, signed to manage the entire band. The band said, please come manage us. And during that entire time that Sammy Hagar was with Van Halen, it wasn't until towards the very end that Eddie and Alex Van Halen found out Van Halen was booking all of their travel through Sammy Hagar's travel agency. So not only was Sammy making money off the tours and off the music, but Sammy's agency was making a killing every year. Just imagine how many people traveled with Van Halen. So, yes, Sammy is a very, very, very smart businessman.
Well, I just think that's just being savvy, right? You're just, taking a situation and making it your own.
There you go. And then Ed Van Halen, Eddie, it's really funny. They call everybody within the Van Halen organization always called Ed Loeffler, the manager, Eddie, and they called Eddie Van Halen Edward. So it was always very confusing to know who was talking about who.
I guess so. That would be. Sherry, do we have any other questions? Did anybody put anything in the chat or email you any questions for Dana? Now's your chance, y'all.
Yeah, actually, the comments I've been getting, one are, the reminder that people are loving is thinking outside the box. Just what you did for the food bank is pretty amazing, thinking outside the box for sure. But people need that reminder. And you guys, Dana is for real. She is completely genuine. She is there for everybody and there to help. Years ago, we used to produce the Ballooner Lift-Off Festival. And one year, it was a huge event. And one year the media stuff got thrown to me. And I was like, okay. So I called Dana, and Dana took the time out to come meet with me here for several hours and said, okay, call this person, do this, do that, make this connection. And the media was amazing that year. But thanks to Dana for helping me. This is years ago, you guys, and I was very new. And I never forgot that. So she means it. Like, if you have something going on, get it to her Facebook. Let her know, because she'll get it out there. I mean, Dana is truly genuine. This is for real. And I've never forgotten that ever. But most of the comments I'm getting on email is that thinking outside of the box and not giving up. And more than ever, none of us thought there would be a pandemic, anything like this across the world. And so
And then
that
it would go on this long.
Right. Well, Cindy and I thought, by May we'd be fine.
Oh, yeah.
I thought by April we'd be fine.
Yeah.
But, that's my Pollyanna world.
Yeah, but I can make a mean beer bread now. And I have the ass to prove it at this point. So.
Right.
But you know what? Look, I just did this, and then I was writing a lot for Microsoft 365, and happened to be in Palm Springs at the same time. My supervisor that hired me to write for Microsoft was there, and 2 bottles of Chardonnay later, he's like, "Let me dye your hair," and I was like, "Okay." And I love it now. I've got to figure out. I tried to dye it again myself, and like big things of it came out. So apparently I didn't do something.
Don't do that again.
But it just made it look that much more rock and roll. So
exactly.
Charlie says he sleeps with Annie Lennox now. So.
Hey.
I think Sean Bailey has a question.
Okay, so I just have a question for you. Is there a song that's made a change, impression in your life? Is there a song that you can think of, a rock song that just made a huge difference, impression in your life?
My favorite song of all time is Led Zeppelin, Whole Lotta Love. I don't know. There's just something so just raw and driving about that. Music makes me very emotional. I think that's why I was such a good music director. And it's not necessarily a song, Sean, but it's like the first time I heard Melissa Etheridge. I was like, I could feel her pain. I could just feel it. It was, I mean, I can stand on the side of the stage and watch Melissa and Joan Jett. Maybe it's just watching strong women, but I literally can stand on the side of the stage and just cry because I'm just so filled with emotion and listening to these artists. So one song, I'm trying to think, what are the first 2 songs I ever bought? I don't know which one it was. It was either Tony Orlando, Tie a Yellow Ribbon Round the Old Oak Tree, or Cher, Gypsies, was it Gypsies, Tramps, and Thieves? Yeah, one of those. But I've always loved music. But, I went off to Texas A&M to be a doctor, and despite the fact that blood makes me pass out. But it sounded impressive. I'll go be a doctor. And then I switched my major to journalism. And then I switched my major to theater. We forced the first theater degree at Texas A&M. And then there was a really cute DJ in Bryan, Texas named Jeff Lowe, who has been a paramedic for years in Katy. But Jeff was really cute, and I wanted him to ask me out. And I thought if I auditioned for the brand new student station, he would think I was cool. And I don't think he even knew I was alive. But the minute I put on the headphones, I knew I was home, and there I was. So
awesome.
Hey, Dana, where can someone find out how to get your books? Cindy's
Amazon
in the right now.
Amazon.com. There you go. That's the new one. I've done an updated version of 101 ways to rock everyday activities for success every day. Let's see what else. That's what Cindy was talking about. That's the new one with Sammy Hagar, and that's the surviving Alzheimer's. So, and then there's a bunch of other ones we did. It's kind of like a For Dummies series. the first 101 ways I put out, an editor said, this is like Twitter. This is like the For Dummies series meets Twitter. Because it's just, they're really short, 101 tips. So, we've got about 9 books in the series now, and that's my next thing, is I'm trying to make myself sit down and write 101 ways to rock networking, because thank you for what you said, Sherry. I am a firm believer. My number one motto is, the more you do to help someone else be successful, the more successful you become. It may not be today, it may not be tomorrow, it may not be next week. If I had not helped David Crosby when he got out of prison, no promises of interviews, nothing. He just needed help, and he needed a doctor and a dentist and whatever. But if I had not done that, he would not have called me 2 years later and said, there's a bunch of astronauts who want to come to a concert. Can you handle this? And, you know, there was a cute little pilot that came along with the whole crew named Charlie Justice, June the 3rd, 1990. And I took one look at him and went, mine. And has been ever since. So we just celebrated 30 years this June.
Wow, congratulations.
Yeah, congratulations.
Scott, your hand is up.
It is. Hey, Dana, are you still doing the laptops, and tell us about the laptop?
You know what Scott's talking about is, I discovered, about 8 years ago, that even in the most affluent neighborhoods, there are kids who were trying in high school that were trying to get through high school without devices. And I know, CCISD gives everybody a device. And now that we're in a pandemic, everybody's trying to give everybody a device. But back then, we've spent the last 8 years, I think we've given away about 400 Google Chromebooks to high school students in need. We're not a nonprofit. I don't have time to do all that. I just, teachers, administrators, the principal at Dickinson High School was the first one to say, I don't care if the school board likes it or not. If you want to give my kids laptops, you come on and do it. I'll go fight the battles. Because a lot of schools didn't want to admit they were letting kids drop through the cracks like this. Well before a pandemic, the majority of high school work is online. High school students are too embarrassed to say, I don't have a laptop or I don't have internet. It's why we need to make basic internet service needs to be a free public service, period. The end. We need to make high-speed internet service available to everyone, or our kids are just never going to learn. But anyway, thank you for asking, Scott. I have since become acquainted with an organization here in Houston through one of the Houston Rockets, he gave them a $650,000 grant earlier this year. So I send everybody there now, and they're opening up all over the country. It's called CompuDopt.org. And they do an amazing job getting laptops into the hands of those in need. And we still have so many kids who don't have laptops and don't have Wi-Fi. So do what you can to help. Education, when I ran for Congress, I ran on healthcare plus education equals jobs. I firmly believe that if everybody was educated and everybody was healthy, then you just think of all the things. Just think of all the things you would do if we all had healthcare, and you didn't have to worry about it. Then you could go off and start companies and start things and be entrepreneurs. So healthy, educated people create jobs. And I am never running for office ever again. Ever, ever, ever. That's the most brutal thing. Dennis Paul, if you're still there, kudos to you. That's the most brutal thing I have ever done. But I did it because it's a democracy and people need to run. You need to be a part of the process and see how it works and see how it doesn't work.
I'm still here, Dana, and it is a lot of work.
It is. But as we say in Texas, bless your heart. I was standing in line at the grocery store in Thompson Falls, Montana last week, and the county commissioner was standing behind me, and I turned around and told him what I said earlier. I said, first of all, I learned you need to put that name tag on the other side, because when somebody shakes your right hand, they're looking at your right shoulder, and it makes it easier for them to see. It feels awkward putting it there, but when you shake somebody's hand, you are immediately looking at their right shoulder, and you see their name tag, and they don't have to go looking to the other side to figure out who you are. And he said, and what's the other thing? And I said, I'm never running for office ever again. So there you go.
We even talked about that in my office one day, Dana.
Yes, Cindy was wonderful. I came in and talked to her, and you know, I talked to a lot of people to get advice.
We talked about name tags.
Yeah.
You know, that's just Chamber of Commerce 101, where the name
But
tag.
and that goes back to the don't be afraid to try new things. It's like, you know, go big or go home.
Exactly. Well, do we have any other questions for Dana? Hasn't this been fun? We want to see you in person soon, Dana. So promise that you'll come back and do a program for us in person sometime soon.
Only if you all promise me you'll wear your mask, wash your hands, stay out of large gatherings. Let's all work together and stop.
Yes, raise your right hand and promise Dana.
Promise
do what
me.
She says.
I would tell you what my hashtag is on Facebook, but you might not like that. It's wear your effing mask.
Oh, okay. There you go. in true Dana style, right?
Right. So Dana@danasteel.com. Email me, text me. I'm on Facebook, Twitter. I tell people, okay, on Facebook, I talk like a sailor. On Twitter is politics and snark. Instagram is fun pictures, and LinkedIn, I'm all business. So you decide what side of me you want.
What Dana you want to see.
That's it.
There you go. Well, thank you again so much for joining us, and thanks everybody for tuning in today. Sean, I wanted to see if you had any other comments or remarks before I close us with some announcements.
Well, Dana, I thought you did fabulous. Awesome.
Thank you.
Awesome. Well, I'm going to start with our next Tuesday, October the 6th. We want you to be an informed voter from 5:30 to 6:30. We are hosting our annual Clear Creek ISD Board of Trustees Candidates Forum. It is sponsored by Texan Bank. So thank you, Christy, and I think Sarah's on with Texan Bank for that. You're invited to join us for this virtual session and become an educated voter. Go to clearlakearea.com/CCISD Candidates Forum to watch the forum, and a link to information about each candidate, early voting and election details, the district map, and to see the candidates in their voting boundaries. So be sure and tune in next Tuesday, October the 6th. It's already here. Then October 13th, 14th, and 15th at 2 o'clock, we're going to have a higher education digital series with College of the Mainland, San Jacinto College, and University of Houston Clear Lake. These are 30-minute sessions to find out what's happening with higher ed right now. You know, there's lots of changes, as we've talked about, and they are pivoting well and thinking out of the box. And so let's hear what those organizations are doing. Then on October the 28th, we'll have an in-person and virtual luncheon. So we're going to have a hybrid at Lakewood Yacht Club. Our guest speaker will be Ron Klinger, the CEO and Chief Engagement Officer of Motivational Transitions. Ron's program will be on leadership in times of change. So just what we need. There will be limited seating, of course, and only prepaid reservations will be allowed to attend, because we don't want you to congregate at the registration table. So marketing your company through sponsorships at these events is available, so please contact us for details. And if you would like to join us for any of these events, go to the calendar at clearlakearea.com to register and check on other upcoming programs and events. So everybody have a great Chamber Day out there, and thank you again for joining us, and thank you again, Dana, for being with us today. So see you all soon.